Hey, you guys, my name is Kiki Bandilla, and I am the founder and the curator, if you will, for the National Self-Reliance Project and Self-Reliance University. So welcome to Voices of Self-Reliance. Today, we are really fortunate to have an expert, I would call an expert in the health insurance or the healthcare field. What most of you probably don't know is that in addition to my hat that I wear with the National Self-Reliance Project, I'm also a licensed health advisor or health insurance specialist, and I'm licensed in about 17 different states. And in that is how through that role is how I met our guest today, James Sackos. He is an incredible knowledge bank when it comes to how the healthcare industry really works. And one thing I know is that, one, we all need health insurance, and two, we're all super confused about it. And I love talking to James. He is one of my best resources to go to when it comes to any kind of question about how the industry works as a whole. So James has been in this industry, for 21 years? You're in your 21st year?
This is my 21st year, correct.
Awesome. Let's just talk a little bit. I know, we don't want to get into specifics because everybody, everybody's situation is different. So we don't want to mislead anybody. So we want to be really careful to speak in general and broad strokes. But talk to me, we're in open enrollment. So what does that mean? Who is that for? What should people, what is the number one question that you hear from people right now in terms of next steps?
Well, first off, there's a lot of misconception. There's a lot of ignorance in general when it comes to health insurance. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that a lot of people, there's a vast majority of people that just don't know. They don't know what their options are. When can they apply? When can't they apply? Do I have a penalty to pay? Do I not? There's a lot of ignorance in general when it comes to health insurance. And again, I don't mean that as a bad term. It just, there's not a lot of education out there, and there's not a lot of programs that teach people. So I'm glad you do things like this, because even as dumb as it sounds, if we can help 3 people today make a decision in regards to what's best for them and their family, great, mission accomplished. But the biggest question I think I get in general is the fact that, what are my options throughout the year? I'm a business owner, pre-ACA plans. Years ago, I used to pay $350 a month for a family of 3 or 4, or whatever the case may be. And today, I'm looking at plans online for $1,500. What are my options? What, do I have other things to go? First off, open enrollment, getting back to your first question, is for absolutely anybody. In general, I would say open enrollment is for the vast majority of people that have pre-existing conditions in general. I think that's probably the majority of people looking to get on a different plan during open enrollment. So open enrollment typically lasts about 6 weeks, depending on, of course, which state you're in. Some states will extend it for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. You always got to be state specific, but the majority of the states in the country are for 6 weeks. And during that 6-week period of time, you're going to see a lot of switching going on. You're going to see somebody that said, I didn't really care for this plan, so I want to apply for that plan. I didn't care for the premium of that plan, so I'm going to find something cheaper. And there's a lot of switching going on during that time frame. And then after that time frame, they typically carry out that plan from January through the rest of that year until open enrollment next year. They can opt to keep it. They can switch around, depends on their scenario. What I found in my experience, the majority of people that are looking to switch or looking for the open enrollment period in general are people with pre-existing conditions. You get somebody that maybe declined from a private health insurance plan. What's inevitably going to happen is the ACA, and whether you like it or not, and this is what I love about programs like this, is the fact that you can take a very non-biased approach. In anything in life, you're going to get people on the left side of the fence and the right side of the fence. With this, I just, we can just talk truthful, and you can make up your own mind whether you like the ACA or not. And that's what I love, again, about these programs. And the ACA is actually a fantastic program for certain people. Other people are going to absolutely just not like it because their premiums went way up, and they might not get a subsidy to where, for instance, somebody that earns $200,000 a year, maybe they're a small business owner, they don't get a subsidy. So their premiums have increased, 3 times what they used to be. You're going to get somebody on the other side of the fence that says, look, I could never afford healthcare to begin with. Plus I have major pre-existing conditions, and no insurance company in America would talk to me 10 years ago. But today, you know what? I'm getting it for like $20 a month, and I'm happy with it. All we're here to do today is just basically tell people what their options are. So getting back to your question, talking about open enrollment, the biggest question that I get, I think, during this time of year is, what are my options? And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today is there's a million different people out there with a million different scenarios. What would be the best option for you and your family?
And so just to clarify, so the ACA is the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, or your marketplace.
It's got a lot of different names, but yes, it's the same thing. Right.
All right. And so there used to be, and I just want to step back just for one moment here, there used to be a penalty if you did not have what's called an ACA compliant plan. That penalty is no longer a tax penalty if you didn't have such a plan. That Congress did away with that in 2019. Am I correct?
Correct. The Trump administration basically said, we don't feel it's fair if you want to go get something off the exchange that you should not pay a penalty. So whether you agree with that or not, that penalty has been erased currently. Now, will it come back if we switch administrations? Honestly, we have no idea. But right now, that is not the case. Even before President Trump took over and did away with that tax penalty, there were several exclusions, that you might qualify for an exemption, so to speak, and not have to pay that penalty. So it really, again, there's so many different scenarios out there that you really don't know what you may fall into until you start to check.
Okay. So in other words, so these options that we're going to talk about is really dependent upon what your particular situation is, but you're not required to move into one direction or another because of government, requirements or anything like that.
Yeah, not at all. You still have a lot of freedom to choose what you would like for you and your family. I think that's the biggest misconception out there, is that I must take this or pay a penalty. That's absolutely not true. It really, again, depends on your scenario, and we can talk about those options on today's program.
All right. Yeah. So why don't let's just start with kind of what most people know about, and perhaps the ACA, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure. First off, let's kind of take this in stride. The ACA, the Affordable Care Act, again, is fantastic for people who may be at or below the poverty line. If you are near the poverty line or below the poverty line, of course it's going to be wonderful for you. You're going to get a very large subsidy that's going to eat up the majority, if not all, of your premium, to where you might not have to pay anything. And if you did, it might be just a few dollars a month. In addition to that, it's giving you the quality health care that you're entitled to. However, and I say however, because there's always an opposite to every single scenario out there. We focus a lot on the small business owner, and their families. You got a lot of small business owners in middle America today that make too much money that they don't qualify for a subsidy, but not enough money to where they would consider themselves wealthy or rich. So in other words, a $1,500, $1,800 a month premium, they can't do it. It's just too much money. So they're right in that little catch-22 window. And that's where a lot of times we lose focus. And that's where somebody like myself, somebody like yourself, this is where the questions come from a lot. This is where, we try to put a lot of our focus on people who kind of got caught in that little catch-22 window, so to speak, that I'm not making enough money, to pay $1,500 a month for my family, but I'm certainly making a little bit too much that they don't qualify me for a subsidy. What are my options? So, if you want, we can start there, and we can take this in any direction you wish.
Yeah, let's talk about what the, what I guess what the options are and who should be looking at the ACA,
Mhm.
who should be, and what are the alternatives outside of the ACA?
Sure.
And what are some of the things that people should be really aware of before they accept a plan? If it's perhaps, we talk about short-term and even limited benefit
Right.
plans. So we can touch on that at the very end. But yeah, why don't we just start with the two main ones, the ACA and what's the main alternative
Sure.
to the ACA?
Well, starting with the ACA, because that is the vast majority of plans out there today. The ACA, again, of course, the Affordable Care Act. You can jump online. You can go through a private broker, whatever. There's a lot of different ACA plans out there. They all have a lot of things in common. They have to carry a certain structure to be considered an ACA plan. Major medical style plans, deductible, so forth and so on. Very simple to use. A lot of times you're going to have deductibles that can range from $1,000 as much as I've seen some $13,000. It just depends on what you can afford, what you want, what you want your premium to be, so forth and so on. The majority of people on ACA plans that I've noticed, and again, there's some exceptions, of course, but the majority of people that I've noticed are people who receive a large subsidy, of course, and people with some pretty major pre-existing conditions that, it is a guaranteed policy. So in other words, it's accepted no matter what conditions you have. And that's another thing that, of course, drives up the price of the ACA is the fact that a lot of people with major pre-existing conditions have jumped on it early. Of course, claims are going to be high, therefore it pushes premiums higher. That's just kind of common sense. That being said, there are other options out there. There's private plans out there. Let me give you a couple of great options. First off, there's work plans, employee plans, but not everybody's employee. So if you have an employment, maybe you are an employee somewhere that offers you that's going to be a private plan. That's always a great option for you. What if you're a small business owner, though? If you're a small business owner and you've only got maybe 2 employees or no employees, there's a lot of us out there like that as well. Real estate agents, people like myself, an insurance agent. I'm a one-man operation, so I have no employees. So that being said, what are your options? Well, you've got a couple of different options too. You have some private plans. You also have short-term medical plans. Now, the one thing that I will advise you on is short-term medical is exactly what it sounds like. It's short-term. There are typically, and I don't throw a wide cast net for many, many reasons, because the minute I say something like this, you're going to find that 1 in a million plan that might cover something. But typically, you're going to find that the majority of short-term medical plans out there are not going to cover pre-existing conditions. So therefore, you may have XYZ condition, and every 3 months, 6 months, or a year, or whatever your term is on the short-term plan, when it comes up for renewal, they're going to put a new pre-existing clause on there. So in other words, it's never, ever, ever going to cover that pre-existing condition because you're going to keep renewing that short-term plan. Now, for people in a short-term scenario, I'm coming off a job and I need something for 3 months till I get a new job. Perfect. That's exactly what it's designed for. However, there's a lot of people since the ACA came out that's in that little catch-22 window that we talked about that don't make enough money to afford a really expensive plan, but they make too much money that they don't get a subsidy. A lot of these people are looking at short-term medical plans as an alternative, and I would highly recommend that you don't. And the reason I say that is, again, you're looking for a long-term, health insurance plan. It's in its name. It's short-term medical. It's there for a reason. Again, if you're looking for a long-term plan, I would highly advise you do not consider a short-term medical plan. There are other plans out there. There are private funded plans. These ones, everyone's got an opinion on this. I have never really cared for self-funded plans, and I'll tell you why. I have seen organizations. There was a real estate group, who shall remain nameless, of course, but there was a real estate group in Florida when I was, young into this industry. This was probably easily 17, 18 years ago, that one person made a claim, and it was a cancer claim, and it wiped out the entire bank, so to speak. Because it was self-funded, people kept pouring their money in with premiums, and they try to get the group bigger and bigger and bigger. One person can wipe out that entire plan. That's what really worries me with those type of plans. The way that I would recommend you is that you look at, if you don't have major pre-existing conditions, I would look at the private market. I would look at something that, does still have underwriting, therefore, your premiums are going to be cheaper. But in addition to that, you are going to get a long-term type of a service, something that if you, God forbid, did have a heart attack or cancer or some major claim, you're still going to get the service that you need, and you're going to get it at the price you want. But at the same time, you don't have to worry about those pre-existing conditions once you actually have them, because it's not a short-term plan that keeps renewing every few months or a year or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. So the ACA is guaranteed issue. Anybody can get that.
Correct.
But not everybody will be eligible for the subsidy. And unless you have some pre-existing conditions, you're probably going to choose a lower premium with a higher deductible. So you're really not going to be utilizing a lot of your benefits.
What we find, not to cut you off, but what we find a lot of when we talk to potential customers, the ones that are looking to come off an ACA plan and go into the private sector, is I hear this a lot. I've got a $7,900 deductible, $7,500 annual deductible. I've had this plan for 3 years and haven't even come close to meeting it. And in addition to that, I'm paying $1,500 a month. Why would I continue to do that? And my answer every time is because you don't know what next year is going to hold. However, that being said, if you can medically qualify for one of these private plans, private long-term plans that are out there, then why wouldn't you do that? If you can find something for roughly half the price or significantly discounted, but that still offers you long-term coverage, great coverage, why would you not while you still can? Because who knows, after the heart attack, you're probably going to remain on that plan, I'm assuming forever, or as long as possible, as long as you can afford it for that reason, because it is guaranteed issue.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Yeah. And because of course, I joke and say oftentimes, it's the gym membership that you never go to the gym, but you just keep paying towards it. But at the same time, it's about a value proposition, really is kind of what I have found. But most people don't know what the different private market options are because, maybe they're getting bombarded with 10 bazillion phone calls and nobody is really laying it out in layman's terms. And it's very hard to, figure out what are you offering a short term? Are you offering a private funded, a self-funded plan? What kind of questions should people be asking to find these private plans and the private plans that would serve them for the longest term?
My question's putting myself directly in the shoes of a consumer, which I am too, by the way. I have a private plan, knock on wood, I could still, qualify myself and my family for. So we found a plan that was quite literally pretty close to half the price of an ACA plan. And I've had that ever since. I've had it for years and we love it. It's outstanding. So the questions I would have, because I had those same questions, number one, can I go to my doctor? In other words, do you have a network that's so ungodly tight and restricted that I'm not going to be able to find a provider in there? That would be one. If you find a plan that says, hey, go wherever you want to go, or our network is, pretty large, whatever the case may be, and your providers are in there, I think that would be a very good starting question. Question number two, of course, let's be truthful, it's always going to come down to money. What type of premium am I looking at for my family and I? What are your annual rate increases? I mean, that'd be great if you started me off at $300 today, but if next year I'm up to $17,000, I don't think that would make a lot of sense. Things like that. I would like to know this company's track record, so forth and so on. What type of deductibles do I have? If I go to the doctor, how easy is this plan to utilize? Let me ask you another question. Again, coming from myself as a consumer, take away all the knowledge I have about insurance. I would want to know this. Most of the plans out there that I look at today, if I have to cough up $7,900 as a deductible, and you're covering a $10,000 operation, that doesn't seem to be a very fair trade. However, that being said, what if it's $1 million claim? That's the whole reason we have insurance. But if we're looking at a large claim, how long am I going to be missing work? If I miss work for 6 months because I'm recuperating and recovering from, God forbid, a cancer or a major heart attack or something like that, or a major accident, who's going to pay my bills? Is there some type of, supplementary, plan that comes with this insurance, or is it just straight insurance? There's a lot of questions people could ask, but where I've seen in my career where more people get hung up is doctor's visits and copays and medications. And to me, that's actually the opposite of what health insurance is about. I mean, if I needed to go down the road and go to my doctor right now, and I could probably negotiate that down to 50 or 60 bucks, that's not why I need insurance. I need insurance if I have a heart attack, or if I have cancer, or if I have, something major. Too many people, I think, this is just my humble opinion, too many people during the HMO craze of the 80s and 90s got very, very hung up on small copays. When the ACA plans rolled out, I think the realization was, okay, now it's more of a cost share. I get that. But again, if you get back to the root of why people look for health insurance in general, and you ask questions about, let's talk about the catastrophic event. How much money would I be out of pocket? If your answer is only a couple $1,000s and that's it, there's no surprise, there's a term that we use in this industry called OOPS, OOPS. That stands for out of pocket surprise. If your insurance company doesn't have OOPS, and they just say, look, it's a maximum of XYZ out of pocket and that's it, and you know exactly what your risk is, and you find it for a premium that you like, to me, that's probably going to be a pretty good insurance company to go with, especially if their network is wide enough that all your providers are in it. And again, God forbid you or a loved one needed to go under the knife, you can actually go to the provider that you choose to go to, not who they want you to go to. There's a huge difference there. To me, that would be a great insurance plan to take a look at.
And to that point, so let's define, there's, generally speaking, we're talking about HMOs, which is a health maintenance organization. An EPO is an exclusive provider organization, and a PPO, which is a preferred provider organization.
Correct.
Can you talk about those? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each of those?
Sure. A PPO, again, whether you call it an opinion or fact, I will gracefully say this is my opinion. A PPO is your best option because it's a much wider, much broader area of coverage. I'll give you an example. The personal plan that I chose for myself and my family is a PPO. I can go to any provider, any hospital, any doctor I choose to, anywhere in the country, and there's zero penalty for me going outside of that network. An HMO and an EPO are tighter, restricted networks. HMO typically is going to be statewide. EPO typically is countywide. And again, that's not always the case, but typically the case. So if I choose an HMO, I'm restricted to the state that I live in general, not always. Now, if it's an emergency, I'm traveling, I have a heart attack, there's, 9 times out of 10, my plan with an HMO is going to say, even if you're outside of your state, we're going to, resuscitate you. We're going to do, we're going to save your life. We're not going to basically let you die on our watch. But if you need additional treatments, you're going to need to go back to your home state to get those treatments because that's going to be a non-emergency event. I'll give you a great example. If somebody suffers a heart attack while they're on the road, they're going to be stabilized in that hospital, and that will be, again, it should be with your HMO plan, it should be a covered event. But if you needed a triple bypass or a quadruple bypass, again, the majority of the time, they're going to tell you that's not an emergency scenario, and because you're out of your network, we're going to recommend that you go back in your network to get that done. That's not the type of plan I'm personally looking for. Now, there's a lot of people that say, hey, no problem. That's okay with me if I save $10 a month. Fine. That's why there's options. Me, I would rather pay a few extra dollars, get myself into a PPO scenario that if I'm traveling and God forbid I'm up in Kalamazoo and I have a heart attack and they tell me you've got clogged arteries and you need a triple bypass, I'm getting the quality care I need right then and there, and I don't have to worry about going back to my home state, or I don't have to worry about, is this surgeon in the hospital and that one's not. We've heard horror stories in my 20 years, myself and some of my associates, where a hospital might be in their network, HMO specifically or EPO, but the surgeon that came in to work on them is not. And so one bill's covered, one bill's not, and they're fighting back and forth. I don't worry about that with my plan, and that's where I think people should start if you want that type of hassle-free insurance that you're looking for your family.
Well, and especially with people traveling, so many of us anymore, we've moved from New York to, I'm in Colorado, you're in Florida. How many people move from New York to Florida, but they still have family in New York and they want to go back to their favorite doctors in New York. Just because they live in Florida doesn't mean that they can't get back to New York to go to their pediatrician that they loved, or whoever it is that they want to take their kids to, so that's where I feel that there's so much freedom with a PPO over an HMO or an EPO. So
I agree.
With that, so we've talked about, kind of the options, and really quickly, like the self-funded option, those would be like the Christian ministry type plans and so forth. Okay.
And there are some real estate groups and medical groups, and there's a very wide variety of them, but there are a lot of Christian ministry type groups as well. Again, I want everybody to know, I do not snub those plans. I do not look down on them. I've had enough experience with my 20 plus years in this industry where I have seen a few of them where one person wipes out the entire plan, and then if you and your family has been paying in for 3 years, now there's no more money in it and you need to actually use it, they tell you, well, sorry, it's gone. And that worries me. And that's why I personally have never chosen that route. Now, again, if you're with a ministry and they have something like that and you have faith in it, fantastic. That, again, there's options for everybody. But again, to me, that just always has been in the back of my mind because I've seen it a couple of times. If I hadn't seen it, I probably would say, it's no big deal. Insurance companies, they have to be backed. So, these self-funded plans do not. Once somebody wipes it out, there's no reassurance. An insurance company, you have to, it's regulated. So you've got other companies that reinsure insurance companies to where that type of thing doesn't happen.
Well, that's huge. I mean, it's
correct.
You definitely, why have insurance? The whole idea of insurance, especially if you're healthy, is you want to know that if that big or bad should happen, that you're covered. And that's just about peace of mind. That's what I say, is that we really sell peace of mind more than anything.
Exactly.
There's, and the last thing, because I want to be cognizant of time, and there's so much to unpack. I mean, you can't, this is health insurance 101, 010, 101, because there's just so many different details. But let's talk about what's going on in Congress or right now. And I mean, this is, I'm talking about, let's make it really fast. But, so the ACA just went to the Supreme Court. And, but I know that there's obviously a lot of volatility going on in the health insurance market in terms of political, division and whatnot. How, and I know that how do people find peace of mind knowing that when they find a plan that they like, that they can stay on that plan for the foreseeable future? I mean, is it tomorrow that they're going to wake up and the plan that they had is going to be gone because the Supreme Court ruled against it or for it, or how is that going to all pan out?
Sure. No, I appreciate that question. It's actually, it's an age-old question. I've been dealing with this for 20 plus years. And my best advice to everybody is this: it's a lot easier to turn a speedboat on a dime than it is a cruise ship. Okay. And what I mean by that is this is huge. This is a cruise ship. This is something that comes up every election. It is a big deal. So in other words, even if we get a new commander in chief every 4 years, whatever the case may be, nothing is going to happen tomorrow. All these changes take place way down the road. They go through a series of, elections and votes, and then they go through court, and it just takes forever to get anything overturned and to get things, going in a certain direction. My best advice is this: get yourself into a plan that you like, that you can afford, that does all the things that you want it to do. And there's always going to be a private sector. A lot of people don't realize this, but even when Canada years back went into a scenario to where they had like a single payer system, so to speak, there are tons and tons of people who elected to go get private insurance because they didn't want to wait for 6 months to go see their doctor. And I throw that out there hypothetically because you might be able to see your doctor in 3 weeks, but sometimes you have a condition, and to go get tested for that condition, it might be 6 months, or to go see a dentist, it might take X amount of time, or whatever the case may be. There's always going to be a private sector. So, there's always going to be what I consider, somebody like myself who's a small business owner that makes a little bit too much money, that I don't get a subsidy, a little bit less money, that, I'm still looking to find a deal. So there's always going to be that catch-22, just like myself, just like you, that are looking for that private sector. I don't think that's ever going to go away. Again, that's an opinion, not a fact. Just, knowing the world and seeing what our friends to the north do and seeing what we're going through and seeing some of these others, I personally don't think the private sector is ever going to go away. I think it's always going to be there for people who want it.
Okay. So in other words, don't wait until the new administration is in place, whatever the administration.
I think that's the worst thing you could do.
Right. Make your decision based on what you know today, and don't wait based on what you're seeing Here's why I think it's the worst thing you could do, is because we still have to look at what's at hand. What is at hand is we still have the Affordable Care Act in private plans. If you apply for a private plan and you happen to get declined for some pre-existing condition, reason, whatever, you still have time during open enrollment to go get yourself on a guaranteed issue plan. If you wait and see what this election's going to do, you wait and see what the next commander-in-chief's going to do, it's going to be too late. By then, they're going to say, well, no, now you're outside of open enrollment and you got to wait for a year. And then, to me, that's the absolute worst thing that you could do. And what is the best way for people to find the agents that they want to talk to? Do they go out to the internet and put their name out there, or not?
You can, if you would like about 20 calls a day, you can do that. It's funny because agents like yourself and like me, we buy leads. I mean, that's how we make our living, is we purchase leads, and we're told they're exclusive leads, which they rarely to never are. And even though we pay money to buy someone's information that says I've requested, information on healthcare, you give them a call and 9 times out of 10, they tell you you're the 20th call today. The easiest thing to do, in my opinion, is to, take a look in your local, internet, of course, is great for a few things, but take a look in your local internet to find maybe 1 or 2 reps with a solid reputation that do great business in regards to private insurance plans, if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for an ACA, find a broker that sells ACA, whatever. But I would take a look doing it that way. And just, again, putting myself in the customer's shoes, last thing in the world I'd want to do is get bombarded with 20, 30 calls a day, and they just don't stop for weeks. So to me, that's the way I would do it, is just find 1 or 2 people, reach out to them, have them run me a few quotes, give me some options, and that way I'm not getting bombarded on my end.
Okay, that's great advice, because I know that is a very on top of the frustration of trying to figure out the health insurance, on top of it, you're bombarded with a bunch of phone calls, which
right.
That's no fun. And some people know more than others. And you just, at the end of the day, you just finally give up. And that too is not the right thing to do. Don't let that be your demise. Yeah. So I think that if there's anything else that you wanted to add, I mean, the one thing that we didn't talk about, because it's a completely different beast, obviously, is Medicare. And that's for, generally speaking, ages 65 plus, right. And also people who could qualify for Medicare disability. That's generally not who you're not calling an ACA broker for that, or someone on the private insurance plan. You're calling a right. Medicare broker specifically.
Correct. And the last piece of advice I would offer to your audience is this: don't solely look at price. That's what I have learned over the years, is that you got a lot of brokers out there that will they'll offer 30 different plans and they will take the lowest price. Here it is. If you don't like it, well, let me show you this one. Then let me show you this one. And, to me, if you find an agent that represents a company or two or three or whatever the case may be, but has something very specific to your needs of you and your family, I would put price down the list a little bit. And I know that's easier said than done. I know everybody's looking to save a buck. I get that, me too. But I would look at the quality of the plan first, then compare the price. And if that's the type of plan you want and it's in your price range, perfect, pick it. But don't let a broker pick the price for you and pick the plan for you based upon price. That was always one of the biggest things that irritated me back in the day was a broker would call me and say, well, what is your price range? It shouldn't matter. You tell me what you got and I'll tell you what I can afford. But, look at something that is right for you and your family. Take price out of the equation until the end. And like I said, if those two things match up and it's something you're satisfied with, then to me, that's a good match.
Perfect. Yeah, I always like to say too, you just want to look at, what is your bottom line? Forget if it's called deductible, forget if it's called premium. What is the bottom line? How much are you going to be reaching into your pocket to be able to meet the needs of yourself and your family? And right. As opposed to just looking at, a straight across the board premium payment or just the deductible, right. So there's so many different variables.
There's so many, like you just said, you just nailed it. There are so many different variables with health insurance. People don't realize that. People just think, well, you're going to cover me for everything, so I'm searching for the cheapest premium. That's not true. Health insurance plan A to health insurance plan Z could be just a million times different than what you think it is. And a lot of people just see what's on the surface. Oh, they gave me a $25 copay. Okay, well, how much are they going to pay if you go in the hospital? And they look at you real funny, like, well, what do you mean? They're going to pay all of it? No. There's a lot of companies that have all these little maximums in there and so forth and so on. And, you don't realize that because you bought it on price. That's why I said price should come down the road. Get the plan you want first, then take a look at the price. And if they happen to sync up, great, make yourself a purchasing decision. That's what an agent is great for. If you have an agent that can help you make that purchasing decision based upon what you want, not based upon that inevitable question of, well, how much can you afford? That question has always bothered me because what you can afford today and what you can afford at claim time are two different things. Yeah. I've had 1 million people tell me about the plan that they were on and they're trying to get my coverage, and they'll say, listen, if I would have only known, if I could have paid $20 extra, I would have had this better coverage, but I didn't know. And that's what we're here to do, is to advise and educate people.
Absolutely. So I have to close out by asking you about your pink hoodie. And, yes. And so you are with your company, with our company. Talk about hope. I think it's especially in times like
hope, now. By the way, is on the sleeve. If you can see that, I'm trying to turn it just right.
Yeah.
So hope is helping other people every day. And we have this just unbelievably great mantra at our home office that is always about helping and serving everybody, whether it's just our local communities or somebody who needs our help, or an agent, a fellow agent, or whatever the case may be, a client, whatever. The fact of the matter is we have this unbelievably great mantra of hope, and this was my region's way of giving back. This year, every year, we do fundraisers and all kinds of charity drives and everything else. We've done everything from golf outings and donated money to charity to you name it. Where we went to a children's hospital last year, that was absolutely incredible, tear jerking, and we donated a lot of money and time, got to play with the kids and take them out front golfing and playing games. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. This particular year, and there's a reason I wore this on today's call, was we are donating our money and time to breast cancer awareness. So all of these hoodies that say hope on them and have the cancer insignia and so forth, basically if anybody who goes to our website and purchases one, 100% of the proceeds we're actually going to donate to breast cancer awareness. So I thought that was just our greatest way this year of giving back.
Absolutely. And that's so important in this day and time as well. So, well, thank you so much,
Thank you for
James.
having me.
And this has been super helpful. There is so much, this could go on for 30 hours and we still wouldn't
Easy.
cover it, everything. So I'm sure there's a lot of blanks to be filled in. And so my contact information is going to be below. Feel free to give me a shout, whether it's the plan that I represent or something else. My main focus is to make sure that you get the plan that is going to be best for you and your family, and certainly not to try to fit a square peg into a round hole, because that doesn't,
Right.
nobody wins in that scenario. And that's one of the things that, quite frankly, James talks about all the time, and it makes me very proud to be a part of this organization. James is one of the regional directors in sales directors in the company, and he does a great job. And I know what you're about, and that is what we see throughout the organization in terms of just the integrity and not trying to, push someone in a direction that's not right for them.
It really does permeate from our CEO all the way down to every single rep that we have. It's the way that we train. It's the way that we were taught from early on. We're one of the very few companies that actually has a pulse, as we say. And, we like to do what's right and give back. And like Kiki said, even if it's a plan that she can't help you with, she'll point you in the right direction. I mean, we take a lot of pride in our integrity. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, James. And again, any questions? My contact information is going to be below. And we just might have James back, though, to fill in some of the blanks. So any questions that you guys might have, let us know and we'll get those answered. Thanks again.
Take care.